she will return to her own love. A love held in waiting patiently and lovingly while she remains in her misery. Her love knew that one day she would come back as she remembered the strength and power of her own love. And in the years gone by, she held out hope of receiving the love she longed for. And in the quiet recesses of her mind, she believed a love of great significance existed in spite of her never experiencing it in her own life. This love remained tucked away, watching, trusting, ready. When the time was right, which was all the time, her love declared itself, reminding her of its presence. Yet she was so blinded by her misery, she wasn't able to feel her love when it showed itself to her. She could sometimes sense it. Unfortunately, though, she often dismissed it as not for her. She didn't deserve to feel that love, so she protected herself from such an intense feeling of love by submerging it under her misery, only allowing her hate and self-loathing to remain as they were. Her misery was jam-packed, decade after decade of hate and self-loathing held in place by her non-existent self-worth. What contributed to such severe and excessive feelings? Of course, there is the hate, the full-blown hatred of everything she is. She hates how her body looks, all of the fatness and the wobbles. She finds it so disgusting she can't even look at it without feeling angry. Angry at her hunger, angry at her never-ending need to eat, angry at herself for using food to punish herself, which only makes her body grow larger and larger. Angry that the cycle of hatred and eating and punishment keeps racing around and around and around, causing her to feel dizzy and out of control. If she were to fall down from all the spinning, who is there to catch her? No one. She cannot rely on a single person to rush to her side and help her up. There are plenty of people who will yell at her to get up and stop being so dramatic. She can count on them to let her down and push her back down. Their hand won't be offered as a kind and loving gesture. Her life has maintained the illusion that it is one big ball of misery. A rubber band ball where rubber bands were being added to the ball every single day, connecting band after band, emotion after emotion, thought after thought, misery after misery. There isn't a day that goes by where she doesn't feel weighed down by her misery, where she isn't lost in her past. All that has been done to her, said to her, or not done, or not said. Words left unspoken, words spoken in anger, words spoken with no hint of love, words too scared to be shared. It's the words she struggles to forget, the moods too. The explosive combinations strike into the heart of her very existence. With each strike, she became less and less herself. She retreated. She became angry. She became someone who no longer gave a shit about anyone or anything, especially herself. That's where the punishment began. Food, hatred, anger, her weapons of choice. All of them filling up her days, so there was no room for anything else. The punishment was relentless, stubborn, sadistic. There was a ruthless pleasure in the punishment, each mouthful of punishment swallowing down into a secret satisfaction of once again feeling disgusted about feeling so sick and full, of having gorged herself on the deliciousness of each bite of sugar and fat gave to her senses, and with it came the self-loathing, a perverse comfort each morsel brought to her body that she wasn't able to find in the right places. There was a very unique fusion of hate, pleasure, self-loathing and satisfaction which kept her chained to such a tormented and incessant cycle. The worst part of it is she really had no idea of the power she held within her to break free from every single punishing thing she was doing to herself, so she could go about loving herself once more. Everywhere she turned, there were reminders of the woman she longed to be, the woman who always was just out of her reach, the woman everyone screamed at her she must be. That woman showed up in every movie she saw, every TV show she watched with awe and jealousy, every magazine she read to better who she was, with no success, only failure. And those women walking down the street who seemed to have it all. Beauty, skinniness, love, great clothes, a perfect life. All of it. A fantasy being sold throughout the world of what a woman was supposed to be. She couldn't live up to that. From a young age, this fantasy was shoved into her awareness. Everyone seemed to be buying it. Everyone seemed to be killing themselves to get it. She was killing herself in the exact opposite direction, desperately desiring every image and then secretly abusing herself with food because that fantasy was never going to be her reality. She gave up. She was defeated. The desperation of food took over her life until she began running on autopilot. Soon enough, she wasn't even aware of what she was doing. It was now her normal. Just what she did every day of her fucking miserable life. Food gave her what no one else could. Comfort, love, attention. That's why she didn't want it to go. She didn't want to be abandoned by one more thing. There'd been enough of that already. So it stayed for years, decades. Throughout those years, it wasn't only food that caused her pain. Food was only a barricade for something much deeper. Feelings she denied herself, feelings she thought were wrong, feelings that were not allowed to be, for a voice she denied herself, a voice she believed was wrong, a voice she could not and would not allow to be heard, for herself, the real her she denied because she didn't think she was anything other than a fat, worthless and unlovable person. She declared herself to be unworthy. She affirmed herself to never be enough for anyone, for herself, for this life. This life, what a joke. How did she end up with such a shitty life? She must have done something wrong somewhere for her to be given an abundance of misery instead of all the good things she wanted so badly. More than a few times she considered leaving this world, taking her body and putting an end to the pain it held onto, alleviating all of her sadness, cutting ties with a body she no longer had under control. Her body was letting her down. It wouldn't comply. It wouldn't get skinny, no matter how hard she tried. For being skinny was the most important thing in the world, and if she couldn't have that, then she may as well punish her body one last time. The ultimate punishment. She was never able to do it though. She never actually planned how she was going to leave this world. It was simply a thought. A sad, heartbroken, and distressing thought. Amongst all of that sad misery, there was a sense of more. More for her life than she was allowing. It was like a niggle that never went away, incessantly poking ever so slightly. Occasionally she felt a prod, a nudge. It made her wince. She took notice. She wondered what it was. But that's where it ended. But it was there, every single day of her life. It was in her wanting more than what she had. It was connected to each thought of how she can make her life better. It accompanied her when she was doing her best to create the life she yearned to have. Yet she wasn't aware of its existence. It spoke to her on many an occasion, hoping she was listening this time. That sense she was feeling was her own. Her own love knew exactly what she wanted. It was attempting to give it to her, but she had her back turned with no comprehension. Her love was there, offering it all to her. Every single thing she wanted was right behind her. All she had to do was turn around for it now to be in front of her. Yet she was fastened to the spot, her misery holding her down, her feet unable to take those few tentative steps to face the other way. Her misery has had her undivided attention for so long. She cannot look at anything else. She does not see what is right there on the other side. If she ever went to turn her head to look, Misery would quickly snap her attention away so it could point out all the shitty things and say, "This is your life. That other stuff is for people more worthy than you." Love was surely persistent, though. It never gave up on her. It would continue to show itself to her until the day she moved out of her human body and returned home with all of the lessons learned ready for the next adventure on Earth. But for now, Love endured. Love was unwavering. Love stayed put. Love wanted nothing more than for her to realize her own power, to recognize the quality of strength she carried around with her. Each day that she woke up and begged herself to be better was because of that strength, because of that power. The urge to stay in this world was greater than the urge to leave. It was as if something prevented that from happening because it knew her life was meant for greatness, as is everyone's. Her life was too important to leave it now, or ever. It would eventually become clear to her why her life needed to remain. So, her love spoke to her every chance it got. It whispered love into her ear and into her heart. It moved around her body in a rapture of emotion. It moved her in the direction she wanted to go in, though it was barely noticeable until one day she looked up to see where she was. Her eyes stared in awe. She blinked a few times to see if she was imagining what was in front of her. Underneath the misery, somehow love found a way to bring goodness into her life. It snuck it in when she wasn't looking, hiding it in plain sight. She was so busy giving misery her attention, she barely noticed what had been there all along. It came and it went. The good and the miserable, the tide washing them ashore in a great wave and sometimes a tiny ripple. They were both a part of her life, together, side by side, parallel opposites. If only she turned around once in a while to see what was on the other side, to see what her love brought to her. How did she receive such wonderful gifts when she did nothing but ignore her love and treat her love with an immense amount of disrespect and reckless abandon? That's what love does. It is unconditional. It serves even when no one is paying attention. It handles each want and need with care and intention. It has only best interests at heart. This is what her love has done for her. She is beginning to turn, a slow and reluctant turn, but she is definitely moving. She can feel her love at the back of her. She can sense its presence. She wants to know more about her own love. She needs to connect with her love all over again. She's scared. Love is uncomfortable for her. She barely recognizes its warmth, its comfort, feelings she has hoped for in the past but couldn't allow. Her fear is only a reflection of the unknown. She has no idea what will come of her if she were to open herself up fully and completely to her own love. She knows who she is now in all her fucked up misery. This has encompassed the last 30 years of her life. Who is she without her? It's much easier to stay with what you know than to turn into the unknown. Her feet are taking their time. She keeps willing them to move. They have to move. If she remains where she stands, eventually she will crumble. No way of getting back up. For the lover she holds her hand, encouraging, loving, radiant. What was behind her is now in front of her. She is home, back where she belongs.